Hi, this is Pavel. And this is my homework from the book C Sharp 2012 How to Program. This is an exercise from chapter 4, exercise number 12. You can read the assignment on the screen. It's a simple creation of class called Invoice, and that would have four properties or instance variables. One would be part number, part description, quantity, and then a price for the part. And we would create a class that would have a constructor that would initialize all these variables, and then we would output the total price that would be calculated by the part price by the quantity that is being purchased. Now, first, let me tell you that this is not a tutorial. This is simply me doing my homework. Uh, it's not intended to really go into details of class creation. It's basically just me doing my homework. And if you are a student and this is part of your homework and you get stuck, this will hopefully help you get unstuck. Or you can compare notes, so to speak. You can see your solution, compare it to mine. I'm not saying mine is better, or not that this is the only solution either. uh, there are many ways to go around it about this, and this is mine. So let's get started. I created a project, and the first thing you need to do is create a class. Add new item class, and I'll name the class, how about invoice? That sounds about right. So class invoice, it's empty, but we need to create some properties. I will create automatic properties for part number and part description. Simple get and set, because there is now no real need to check the input. However, as the assignment said, for quantity and for the price, we need to check if they are greater than zero, because we cannot, have a price that is zero or less, and the same with the quantity. So let's create private variables first. Okay, and it would be private integer quantity and private decimal price. Now we will create the properties for part number and part description. This will be just automatic properties. So that would be public string part number and get and set. And the same with the part description. Public string part description get and set. All right, so now we have our variables, and now we can do the constructor. So that would be, of course, public invoice, and it will take all four. Oops, sorry, invoice, and it will take all four parameters from the user. So it will take a string of part number. It will take a string of part description. It will take an integer of quantity, and it will take a decimal for the price. Now we will assign these user supplied input into our variables and properties. So our property part number will equal the user supplied part number, and our property part description will equal user supplied part description. And before I go any further, I will create properties for our private variables, quantity and price, because like I said, we have to check to make sure that they are greater than 0. So we get a public integer quantity, and we get the get. It will simply return a variable quantity, and we will set the quantity only if it's greater than 0. So if the value that the user supplies is greater than 0, then our quantity will equal that value. Otherwise, our quantity, otherwise our quantity will equal 1. By default, if the user supplies 0 as the quantity, it will be automatically set to 1. Otherwise, it will of course be set to the value that the user supplied. We will do the same with the price. Public, this one will be decimal because the price is decimal. And we will again just get the price, the private variable. However, we will not set it unless it is greater than 0, or if it's equal or less than 0, we will set it to 1 again. So set if value that the user supplies is greater than 0, then our price will equal that value. Otherwise, our price will equal 1. Now we also have to do back to the constructor, and we will assign our quantity property to the user supplied quantity, and our price property will equal the user supplied price. Again, these are the values that the user supplies, and in turn we will first check if they're correct, and if they're not, we will assign 1. If they are, we will assign the value that the user supplied, and we will return that value, and we will do the same with the price. Now we are supposed to also do the multiplication of multiply the quantity and price to get the total. So we will create a method called getInvoiceAmount. It's gonna be a public method. It will return decimal, and it will be called get invoice amount, and it will simply return our property quantity times a property price. By the time it gets to this method, these properties were already evaluated and set properly. So this is our class. We don't need to really do anything else here. Now we need to test it to make sure that it works. So let's go to the main method. And we could just feed all the values, all the parameters uh, by hard coding it, but I prefer to just ask the user for the input. So let's do that. So we will create some variables, part number and part description. Those will be string. Quantity will be integer, and of course the price will be decimal. And now we will simply do console dot write line, and we will ask the user to please enter part number, and we will store that part number in the variable part number. Part number equals console dot read line. And we will do the same for part description, quantity, and price. So console dot write line, please enter part description. And our part description will be held by in our variable part description. So it will equal console dot whatever the user entered on that line will be the description. Now we will ask for the quantity. Line, please enter quantity. And in this case, we have to cast the string into an integer because we are storing a number. So we will have to convert it, convert to integer 32, whatever the user entered on that line will be considered the quantity. Now this is not really checking whether the input is correct in terms of what type it is. If user entered a string, there would be an exception thrown. But the assignment doesn't call for that. This is a simply creation of class and how to invoke the constructor and how to output the values and how to perform some basic math within the class. So this will suffice. Right line, and we will ask for what are we asking? Price. Please enter price. And just like quantity, we have to convert it, but this time to decimal. To decimal. Whatever the user entered, we will read. So again, this line asks for a part number. Part number is stored in our variable. Whatever the user entered, the console read and put into part number. The same with the part description. The same with the price and quantity, except before we could store those in our variables, they had to be converted to the proper type. In the quantity had to be converted to integer, and price had to be converted to decimal. Now, when we have the all the input, we can create our object. So invoice object will equal new invoice, and we will pass all the parameters to the constructor. So it will be part number. Was part number first? I'm not sure. Part number, part description, quantity, and price. So part number, then part description, quantity, and price. And now we simply can output what was entered. So console dot write line your order, and we will output the details of our order. And so we will output the part number first, so that will be console dot write line again, part number, and a placeholder for our part number, and we will pass invoice dot part number. This is our property part number. This is the automatic property, just like the part description. Right line, part description. Again, placeholder for the value, and it will be invoice, our object invoice, and we will call the property part description. We will now display the quantity that was ordered. Console dot write line. I'll display quantity. The same way as a placeholder for the quantity, and it will is invoice dot property quantity. And finally, the price. So the console dot write line price, and whatever the user entered, which would be invoice dot property price. Now we will display the calculation of price times quantity that will give us the total cost, which would be console dot write line total, and this will be in currency format, so that would be invoice dot get invoice amount, and this is a method, not a property, so we need the brackets. All right, that's all. And now we got an error here. Did I miss a bracket? Oh, I missed a comma here. All right, so just so we can actually read the output, read line, so the screen pauses. So let's test it. So we got this. Let's debug. Enter part number 1, 2, 3. Enter description. Just a test. Quantity, let's say 10. Price, let's say 5. And you got your order, and you get a part number is 1, 2, 3 that was entered. Description is test. Quantity is 10. Price is 5. 10 times 5 is 50. Before I forget, this formatting means that the placeholder will hold a currency. It will format the output into a currency with the $sign. Now let's see if we can enter some zeros or negative numbers. So part number is 1, 2, 3. Again, test is test, and description is test. And else quantity, let's make it -1, and price 10. Now you can see that quantity was by default changed to 1 because it the evaluated value was not greater than 0, so quantity equaled 1, and that's what was returned. And of course 1 times 10 is 10. And let's do the same for the price. Part number is 1, 2, 3, description test, quantity 10, price let's say 0, and and you can see the price was changed to 1 because again uh, our price was not greater than 0, 0 is not greater than 0, so the price was changed to 1. And I can show you what happens if you enter a string instead of a number. Uh, let's say the quantity would be 1, and now we get an exception because quantity could not be converted to integer. But like I said, this is a simple app. This is not really, doesn't go deep enough to um, evaluate the input and make everything work perfectly. This is just to show you how to create a simple class with some automatic properties, some private variables that are then returned in a property, and how to check if the value entered. And again, it's the value, not the type. If the value was entered correctly, then it is returned. If not, then we will return something else. In this case, we simply default it to 1. So this is my solution to exercise 4.12, chapter 4, exercise 12 from C# 2012, how to program. If you have any comments, leave them below. Again, this was not meant to be a tutorial. This is just my homework. Hopefully it helped you, or at least gave you an opportunity to compare your own solutions with someone else's solution. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.